Hello, welcome to Flutterbug Auto. Today I'm talking about Race to the Line, one of the worst racing games, and 3DS games in general, that I've ever played. Where do I even begin with this one? This was a 3DS eShop game, and it was being sold for $4 when the eShop existed. Keep that price in mind for later. The game has some of the most atrocious movement of all time. Your car almost instantly fishtails anytime you turn even slightly, and it just feels like it's made out of cardboard. I mean, seriously, look at how all these cars move around. There is no weight to it at all. As you can tell, all of the opponents deal with the same awful movement too, and these awful pileups happen all the time, and also often the computer players just get completely stuck. This happens because if you run into a wall just slightly at the wrong angle, the car turns completely 90 degrees, and they can't figure out how to get off the wall again. Brilliant. This will happen to you too, but as a human you have a better shot of correcting, though it is unbelievably annoying to need to do so in the first place. There is absolutely no impact to anything either. As mentioned, the cars feel like they weigh nothing. There's not even any sound effects to help sell the collisions, so it all just feels like mush. The computer players drive like absolute maniacs as well, which is part of why they always get stuck on things. I mean, just look at this. Also, exacerbating all things in this game is that the car takes up an absolutely exorbitant amount of space on the screen. It doesn't impact the game too terribly much, but I would still rather I could more easily see where I'm going. Speaking of which, the game has an atrociously short draw distance. Stuff is constantly popping into view awkwardly right in front of you. And there's frankly little reason for it, given that we're on the 3DS here. And like, the environments themselves don't look half bad, but it's impossible to really appreciate them when they're presented to you like this. All of the potential appeal is completely undermined. On top of all of this, the game is extremely painfully slow as hell. There is no sense of speed, and the tracks are so long, and they just go on and on forever, and sometimes they have multiple laps. It's just a complete slog. There are no speed boosts, the computer players are completely terrible, and so you spend the whole game just doing the world's most boring driving with terrible handling all by yourself. It's just completely and utterly senseless. I also noticed that the game gets more and more unstable as it goes on. By the time you get to the final league, the cars seem to be going too fast for the physics engine to handle, and they're just like constantly vibrating. Things go off the rails way more often than it ever did in the rest of the game. It's really remarkable that it just continues to deteriorate as the game goes on. All of this said, I do feel compelled to give the game some credit for things like, you know, having all these original assets and everything. Like, even compelled to say that the game feels downright decent. And you know why that is? That is because in the decade plus since the game came out, the bar has fallen so far down. Like, this type of game used to be the bottom of the barrel, but then came along more and more cheap, scammy asset flip games on Steam and mobile, and those started making things like Race to the Line look better by comparison. And nowadays we have AI slop games, which make asset flips look okay by comparison, because at least they don't have AI generated stuff, and it's like, I have to stop myself and be like, hey, actually, maybe we shouldn't be letting them take the bar down like that. Like, look at this game. It's trash. It was trash then. It's still trash now. Over time, Shovelware may have been upgraded to be more like Excavatorware, but Shovelware is still Shovelware. So anyway, that's about all there is to say about Race to the Line. It's a boring, janky-ass game with basically no redeeming qualities. But it's so bad and unfinished feeling that it ended up making me curious about who made it and the circumstances of its development. Like, clearly it was rushed as hell, but why? Well, first of all, when I looked into it, I immediately found that this was the last game ever made by this developer. Visual Impact was founded in 1994 and lasted until 2013, when Race to the Line was released. And there were no games after that one. That was it. So basically, as it turns out, Race to the Line was the end of the line for Visual Impact. But then I got looking down their list of games, and it turned out that this game was originally a Chevrolet licensed game called Chevrolet Camaro Wild Ride. It's the exact same game, and this is a full release. This $4 trash eShop game was originally a full-price game. Like, I played it, and there's no, like, it's just the same game, but with Chevy logo on it. That's it. Of course, explains why all the cars are what they are. They're all Camaros. Also, they didn't quite manage to remove all the licensed content. One of the cars in Race to the Line still has the Chevy logo on the front. It still says Camaro on the back. That's incredible. That really highlights just how little went into like thinking about this game at all. And then of course, once I discovered the Camaro version of the game, I discovered that there are Wii and DS versions of that game. So of course, I needed to see what masterpieces those games might be. The Wii version is both much better and also monumentally worse. First, the presentation is massively improved. Look at these menus. There's some like actual style and ideas going on here. I mean, it might be weird ideas. I'm not sure why we're going into an elevator, but it's more style than the menus in Race to the Line have going on. Overall, the visuals are much better than on the 3DS version. Pop-in is much less severe, the geometry is a bit nicer, and the car doesn't take up the whole screen. Also, there's a turbo boost. It charges up while you're driving nearby other cars, and it does a lot to make the game feel more like a race and make the driving less boring. So it gets just as boring again when you're in the lane. Also kind of funny is that when you do the turbo boost, like flames come out of your wheels, which I don't think I've ever seen any other racing game do a turbo boost like that. What a bizarre choice. One other thing about the turbo boost especially annoyed me though, which is that I realized the UI in the 3DS version still has the bar across the top of the speedometer for filling up the turbo boost, but just does nothing. So it really, really bugs me that it's not in the 3DS version. Like why, like... Anyway, on the other hand, the physics are still janky as hell though, and in some cases they're even fucking worse than the 3DS version somehow. Like, do not pick the black car. I don't know why, but I could not get this thing to steer correctly. If a turn was too sharp, it would just spin completely out until I was facing the wrong way. And then I have to slowly turn around, and it was worse than literally anything in the 3DS version by far. I don't even know how it's like this. I have never experienced anything like this before. It's so fundamentally broken. I have absolutely no idea how they broke it like this. Absolutely baffled. I even tried things like not putting on the accelerator when I go around the turn. Nothing. I still spin out. I don't get it. I have no explanation. Nothing. So if for some reason you decide to play this game, don't pick that car. It's a big mistake. Playing as the other car did not fare much better though. Unfortunately, I still ended up getting stuck on the barriers the same way, and so did the computer players. Like, the car physics are not quite as severely bad as in the 3DS version. The issues don't come up as often, but they do still pop up every once in a while. So basically, if I had to pick, I would take the Wii version over the 3DS one for sure, but I'd honestly rather not play either of them. That leaves us with the DS version, and honestly, this is the best one, funny enough. The handling is much more reasonable. I can actually stay in the middle of the road, and I'm not constantly fishtailing. Collision with other cars and stuff is still wonky, but in a way that actually, like, I can handle. It's not leading to awful pileups and shit like that. The computer players actually know how to drive, so it feels like an actual race. It's still not winning any awards or anything, but it's still firmly in the realm of shovelware, but I'd put it above most other shovelware games. I could actually see it being okay to play on a road trip or something like that. The Wii and DS versions also have a few more modes than just racing, such as one where you knock over cones, and one called Speed Limit, where you reach a certain speed. I didn't really get that one, but I'll take some variety. Also, both the Wii and DS versions include different colors for the cars, which... Why couldn't they include a basic feature like that in the 3DS version? Hello? And then when I continued to look through their catalog, I found this game called Ram Racing, and I don't even need to play this one. Look at those screenshots. It's the same goddamn game. I know exactly how it's going to be. I absolutely do not need to touch this one. So yeah, the Wii and DS versions having more stuff going on and being somewhat more competent really shows me that something went severely wrong with the development of the 3DS version. And like, what was it? Like, what happened here? Why was it like this? There's not exactly a lot of info to go off of. Thank you, Moby Games, for the little bit of information that I do have about this developer. But my educated guess is that they rushed this game out the door to get it early on the 3DS, and it completely backfired. The original version of the game came out in 2011, which was the launch year of the 3DS, and so obviously they would not have had any experience with the system yet, and then they rushed it out the door on top of that. Then of course the 3DS's launch didn't go terribly well, so I imagine that didn't help anything for them. And this clearly culminated into the mess we have before us. And the release of Race to the Line on the eShop a few years later was probably in an attempt to recoup losses, but it was obviously too little too late. In the end, it's an interesting little snapshot look into what it was like for small-time Shovelware developers in the early 2010s. Originally, when I meant to make this video, I thought it would just be a stupid little game that I could make a quick video about. But there ended up being so much to talk about. I had a lot of fun looking into the little rabbit hole of this game, and I hope you had a great time coming along with me. As always, I've got more racing content on the way, so we'll see you soon!